She is a natural storyteller, and even if she has forgotten 90% of what she told last time, it will leave us enthralled. Rockey.
Thanks for having me here. I'm very honored to be here. So before I start my story, just a couple facts. Did you know that 1 in 4 people in America, 1 in 4 suffer mental illness? Take a look down your row. If everybody else seems okay, it's probably time for your medication, right?
4 out of 4.
And they're saying now almost 1 in 2 suffer from depression. I'd ask the people in the room who have depression to clap their hands, but you probably don't feel like it. Yeah, well, I have what's called bipolar depression. You're at both ends, you know. It's like you have the happy life of confetti. You're happy, you're sad, you're happy. It's like, oh, look at the glitter, look at the glow. This is so shit. I got that. It goes by that quick. And they're extremes. And I've heard it said that people who are bipolar walk the balance between madness and brilliance, which makes for being a really great artist. And so many artists were bipolar. The father of jazz, not just any kind of jazz, from New Orleans, Charles Buddy Bolden had schizophrenia. He had schizophrenia, and he said he couldn't keep his mind still enough to finish out the music or to replay something again. And so that's where all this improv came from, and he started that. And if he wasn't mentally ill, we wouldn't have the kind of jazz that we know today. Yeah. So I've never been afraid to say I'm bipolar. It's not been an issue for me. Until I learned one time, I went to Ohio State University, and I was doing really great. I was in my 2nd year of my master's program. I had a 3.88 GPA, and I decided to disclose to them that I was bipolar because I wanted to go make up some grades to make them perfect and say, you know what, sometimes are harder than others. And they said, that's just fine, Hannah, you do that. And 2 weeks later, they pulled me from a major production. And the head of the department told me in front of a bunch of faculty sitting around a table that she did not know that I was not violent. She said that she found me unsophisticated and lacking aptitude to do the work. So they pulled me from, I was to be in a production of the Royal Shakespeare Company. I was going to play Amelia in Othello. And I decided instead of staying and being pulled from the show, I would leave the program. And I was really proud of myself for standing up for myself and saying, this isn't fair, and leaving. And then I got home. And it's one of those times when you go, yeah, I did the right thing, and later you go, oh, did I do the right thing? And I started questioning myself. And I started questioning, boy, how crazy am I? I couldn't make it through a program. What was it? What happened? And I started wondering, did my impulsivity fail me? Or did this woman's fear fail me? And I started wondering, am I crazy or am I not? And then I thought back to a time when I discovered what crazy really meant. Because I thought I knew. They say bipolar strikes people in their mid-20s quite often. And it was 1997, and I was in my mid-20s. I still am. Don't ask me how, it just happens. I was in my mid-20s. And my sister, Sarah, had struggled with depression her entire life since the time she was a kid. And ultimately, it took its toll, and my sister took her own life. And I couldn't handle it. It was not something I was prepared for. My family were strong people, we're bold people. People don't die in our family. Dying's for people on the news. And all of a sudden, we're unplugging her from life support. And I lost my faith in God, and I lost my faith in my family, and I thought, what did we do wrong, and what happened? And I wasn't holding myself together. And I was thinking, God, how can I forgive you? And when you're at a point in your life and you're asking God, how can you forgive him? You better step back a little bit and look at things. And so my husband and my family decided I should get some therapy and I should get some medication. So they put me in the state hospital to get some help. And I went in there, and the halls were white and long, and there were green, the trim was green, and I just remember going in, and time just wasn't real for me. I don't know what happened, but I remember coming out of my room, and an old man came shuffling by, and he was wearing a hospital gown, and he was very gaunt and skinny, and he was saying, "My diamonds! My diamonds! She took my diamonds!" And he walked by, and his mouth was kind of frothy and dry, and he was had really bad breath, and his hospital gown was open all the way down the hall. I thought, oh boy, where am I? What's happening to me? And then another woman came by, and she was heavy set, and she had black roots to here and then platinum blonde hair, and she had bright red lipstick like Betty Boop, but it was hot in the hospital, so her lipstick was like melting into the creases of her mouth, and she kept a cigarette hanging out of her mouth, and she said, "Hey, hey you white witch, you son of a bitch, what's your name?" I said, "It's Hannah." She said, "I'm Rosa, you white witch son of a bitch." And she kept going down the hall, and as she did, she left a trail of urine behind her, and she just kind of splashed out her flip-flops and kept going. I decided the hallway wasn't the best place to stay. So I went into this little TV room in the back, and I sat down, and there was a girl about my age, long blonde hair and a pretty sundress, birdcage on her head. Yeah, birdcage. And I sat down, and I thought she was looking at TV, but as I looked closer, she was just staring past the TV. "Hi." I said, "Hi." She said, "I'm Stacy." I said, "I'm Hannah." She said, "Oh." I said, "So, Stacy, how long have you been here?" Because the average stay is about 2.5 weeks, just long enough for your medication to take effect to get chemicals right. I said, "Stacy, how long have you been here?" She said, 7 years. Yeah. I said, "Oh." She said, "How long have you been here?" I said, "I don't know, I've kind of lost track of time." She said, 19 days. I said, "Really?" She said, "Yeah, 19 days. I said, "Well, it's nice to meet you." I said, I'm going to go make a phone call." She said, "Be careful." So I went down the hallway pretty quickly, and I swung open the telephone booth, and I sat down really fast, and then I realized what Stacy meant by "be careful." I sat down, and all of a sudden, the back of my pants were warm and wet, and Rosa had been there. So I went and changed my clothes, and I came back to make a telephone call that I wanted to make. I wanted to call a priest or a pastor or somebody to come talk to me and explain to me about my sister, because it wasn't making sense to me. And so he came the next morning and he talked to me, and we sat in a room, and he said, "You know, Hannah, don't you worry." He said, "Your sister is burning in hell for her sins, but you can still survive. You can make it." And that just gutted me. And I didn't know what was happening. Needless to say, I spent a lot longer in the hospital to try and put this together. And one night, I was sleeping in my room, and we don't have any doors. The hospital doesn't really afford doors, or maybe it's a safety thing. And I heard this banging on my door. "Hannah! Hannah, you white witch son of a bitch! You come dye my hair!" I said, "But Rosa, what are you doing? It's like midnight. Come dye my hair, you son of a bitch!" I said, "You don't talk to me that way, Rosa." I said, "You ask nicely." "Hannah, please. You white witch son of a bitch, wash my hair." So I took her down to this bathroom, and I realized I wasn't going to be able to do this by myself. I needed to elicit Stacy's help. So I walked down to Stacy's room, and she was sitting there, and she had a Bible in her lap, and under that, a nursing book. It looked like she had been studying a long time. She had Bible verses all over her room, dresses everywhere. I said, "Stacy, I kind of need your help. Will you help me give Rosa a bath?" She said, "Okay," and she came down the hall, and we undressed Rosa, and we got her in the tub, and I wedged my feet in behind Rosa's butt, and Stacy wedged her feet in up front, and we were trying to bathe her, and there were no doors, no doors for privacy, and we were scrubbing her, and I had to pick up one pendulous breast and wash her and put it down on the other side, and finally we got her washed and her hair dyed. But in the middle of washing her, I looked down and I noticed that from the breast down, Rosa looked like raw meat. she was scarred everywhere and red. I said, Rosa, what happened? She said, all that white witches, son of a bitches, burned my house down. I lived on the reservation, they burned my house, they burned me, and they killed my children. And that's why she would pee everywhere, because she had so much nerve damage, she couldn't tell when she was going to the bathroom or not. And I was like, Rosa, how do you deal with this? She said, I gotta keep going, Hannah. I gotta keep living for the rest of my family, and you do too. I don't know, somehow she knew what was going on with me. I had a lot of suicidal thoughts. Some part of me thought that if I just left this place the same way, I could follow my sister out of here and catch up with her somehow. And so we were getting Rosa ready, and here I come see the old man walking down the hallway. I learned after his name is Fred. And Fred was walking down the hallway, and he had a towel in his hand. And he came up by the door of the bathroom, and he held that towel up for privacy for Rosa. He must have stayed there for half an hour. His arms were trembling, and he just stood there. Of course, the back of his gown was undone the whole time. So the next couple of days, I saw Fred in the hallway. And Fred had on some nice dress pants. And he had on a dress shirt. And he was clean and fresh, and his hair was combed back. I said, wow, Fred, you're looking great. What's going on? He said, I'm feeling better. I'm fit to go back to work. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm a jeweler. I work with diamonds. It ends up that Fred has schizophrenia, and he quit taking his medication. And if you're schizophrenic and you quit taking your medication, there's a part of your brain that becomes overactive, and it makes you hear voices and see things that aren't there. And so he started getting conversations and arguments with people who weren't really there, and his neighbors and the businesses around him heard about it, and they called the police, and the police took him to the state hospital. What they did not do is give Fred enough time to put away his diamonds. And he has a cleaning service that goes in. And he had been afraid that they were going to take his diamonds, and the cleaning lady would take his diamonds. I said, Fred, what are you going to do? He said, well, I know those diamonds are gone, but I know they're out there somewhere. And it made me think of my sister. I saw Stacy saying goodbye to Fred, and I thought, how many people has Stacy had to say goodbye to over the last 7 years from here? I said, Stacy, how do you do it? She says, it's okay. I'll get out of here someday. I said, Stacy, why have you been in here so long? She said she had been in there for 2 years because she was really depressed. And they tried every medication, and none would work, and none would work, and none would work. And finally, she lied to them, and she said, I'm feeling better, they're working. She met with the board, and she told them she's ready to get out and go home and try this on this medication she was on. And so they said she could leave. They got her bus pass, and they got her a place to stay at a halfway house. So Stacy said she got her suitcase, she packed up her stuff, she started taking the bus to the halfway house, got off halfway there, she purchased a gun from a guy she knew. She got to the front of the halfway house, and she had a choice to go in or to stop the pain right there. She said she set her luggage in the bushes, put her gun in her mouth, and she shot herself through the head. She missed her cerebral cortex by a 1/16 of an inch. A 1/16 of an inch. And they sent her to the hospital, the emergency room, another center, and they put her back at this hospital. She said, I've been here since. She said, I think I'm ready to go, but they have trust issues. And she said, by the way, Hannah, she said, I passed you when that priest was talking to you. She said, I have to tell you, he's wrong. She said, your sister didn't do anything I didn't do. I just missed. And I know God loves me. And I said, well, what keeps you going, Stacy? What keeps you going when you feel like you just can't? She said, God and bad aim. Do you know, today, Stacy left that hospital not long after, I think another year after I was there. She's gotten married, she has a baby, and she finished her nursing degree. Yeah. So, yeah. It's going to be a tough thing People are afraid of it. Sometimes you don't know you're going to get out of it. Sometimes you don't know what's right or wrong. Sometimes it's all confusing, but you got to keep hanging in there and keep going. I'm going to list you for you guys. There was a long list, a list of thousands on the internet. I'm just going to read you a few people who suffer with mental illness, from depression, schizophrenia to bipolar. Vincent van Gogh, Robin Williams, Ben Stiller, Buzz Aldrin, Hans Christian Andersen, Terry Bradshaw, Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, Jim Carrey, Charles Dickens, Charles Darwin, Emily Dickinson, Tennessee Williams, Robert Bush, Abraham Lincoln, his wife Mary Todd Lincoln, Johnny Depp, Isaac Asimov, Charles Schultz, and over 1 million of our war veterans and our war heroes. I'm proud of all these people. And myself, I suffer mental illness, and I'm okay with that. Thank you for hearing me. God bless you.